For most of your life, you have been asking. Asking God, asking the universe, asking fate, asking luck, asking something outside yourself to do what only something inside yourself was ever capable of doing. And it is not your fault. You were taught to ask. From the moment you were old enough to understand the concept of wanting something, you were shown a posture. Head bowed, hands folded, eyes closed. Waiting for permission from a source outside yourself to receive what was always already yours to create. Carl Jung studied this pattern across 50 years and hundreds of clinical cases, and he called what he found the most significant psychological shift a human being can make in a single lifetime. Not therapy, not medication, not years of analysis. One shift. And in the next 7 minutes, I am going to show you exactly what it is. Stay until the end, because the last 2 minutes of this video contain the precise moment Jung described, the moment when asking ends and creating begins. And once you see it, you will never be able to unsee it. Let me show you something that most people never notice. Think about the last time you prayed for money, or visualized abundance, or repeated affirmations about wealth. Where were you in that moment? Not physically, psychologically. Were you standing in the certainty of someone who already has what they desire? Or were you in the position of someone who desperately needs something they do not currently possess? Be honest, because Jung identified this distinction as the precise mechanism that separates the people who receive from the people who ask forever. He called it the difference between a supplicant consciousness and a creative consciousness. The supplicant says, "I need this, please give it to me. I am not enough without it." The creative says, "This already exists within me. I am not asking for it, I am expressing it." Those two positions, identical on the surface, completely opposite in frequency, produce completely different results in the physical world, every time. Subscribe to Hermetic Mind right now and comment below with total honesty. When you pray or visualize for abundance, which position are you actually in, supplicant or creative? Your answer is the map to exactly why your results have been what they have been. Now, here is where Jung goes somewhere that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. He said, "The God you are asking is not separate from you." Not as heresy, not as atheism, not as a dismissal of spirituality, but as the most profound psychological and spiritual truth he ever documented. Jung spent his entire life studying religious experience, mystical states, and the relationship between the human psyche and the divine, and his conclusion, arrived at through 50 years of clinical evidence, personal experience, and rigorous scholarship, was this: the source of abundance, the source of creativity, the source of everything you have been praying to receive, lives in the deepest layer of your own consciousness. Not as a metaphor, not a comforting idea, as a documented psychological reality that he called the Self with a capital S. The innermost center of the psyche, where the human and the divine are not two separate things, but one unified source. And when you ask this source for what you want, you are asking yourself, which means the answer has never been somewhere outside waiting to arrive. It has been inside, waiting to be accessed. The Hermetic initiates understood this 5,000 years before Jung gave it a psychological framework. The first Hermetic principle, the principle of mentalism, states, "The all is mind, the universe is mental." Not that the universe is like a mind, that the universe is mind. And the ancient mystery schools that protected this knowledge for millennia taught their initiates one practice above all others: not prayer, not petition, not asking, assumption. The ancient word for what Jung would later call the creative consciousness. Assumption is the act of inhabiting the consciousness of the version of yourself who already possesses what you desire. Not as performance, not as pretense, not as positive thinking, but as a genuine, complete, and irreversible shift in your psychological identity. Neville Goddard, the 20th century's most precise interpreter of Hermetic consciousness technology, said it with a clarity that has never been improved upon. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Not visualize it, not pray for it, not ask for it. Assume it. Live from it. Think from it. Move through the world from it, as if it were already the case. Because at the level of consciousness, it already is. Hit the like button right now if you have ever felt the difference, even for a moment, between asking for something and simply knowing it was already yours. Because that moment, that feeling of unshakable knowing, is not arrogance, it is not delusion. It is the creative consciousness that Jung called the most powerful shift a human being can make. Now, I want to give you the precise mechanism, the exact internal shift that separates asking from creating. Jung called it the shift from ego to self. The ego prays, the self creates. The ego experiences itself as small, limited, separate from the source. Therefore, it asks the source for what it needs. The self experiences itself as the source. Therefore, it does not ask. It expresses, it creates, it assumes. And here is the practical reality of what this shift looks like in your daily experience. The ego wakes up in the morning and immediately inventories what it lacks, what it needs, what it is afraid of losing, what it has been asking for that has not yet arrived. The self wakes up in the morning and inhabits its identity. Not the identity of someone who wants abundance, the identity of someone for whom abundance is simply the natural expression of what they are. The difference in the physical experience of those two mornings is total. One morning begins with lack, one morning begins with creation. And the universe, which does not respond to words or wishes or prayers, responds only to the consciousness you bring to each moment, receives those two mornings as completely different signals, and responds accordingly. This is the shift Jung documented. This is what the Hermetic initiates practiced. This is what every mystical tradition that has ever existed, from the Sufi masters of Persia to the Kabbalistic scholars of Jerusalem to the Hermetic initiates of Alexandria, all pointed toward when they tried to describe the moment prayer becomes obsolete. Not because God disappears, but because you realize you were never separate from the source you were asking. The source was always looking through your eyes, speaking through your voice, creating through your hands, waiting not for you to ask correctly, but for you to stop asking entirely and start being what you already are. One shift, from supplicant to creator, from asking to assuming, from ego to self, from prayer to presence. This is what Jung called the most powerful shift a human being can make. And it begins not in a temple, not after years of meditation, not when you finally deserve it, but in the 3 minutes after this video ends. When you choose for the first time, or perhaps for the first time consciously, not to ask for the life you want, but to be the consciousness from which that life has no choice but to emerge. Subscribe to Hermetic Mind. Comment below with one word. What changes first when you shift from asking to being? Because the universe is not waiting for your prayer, it is waiting for your presence. The awakening begins where comfort ends. We will see you in the next revelation.